Welcome to Module 4 of this MVA course on Windows Phone 8.1 Enterprise Mobility Management. In the previous modules we've taken a look at mobile device management, and in the last module we took a look at the start of mobile application management, and we deployed a couple of applications to our company portal. In this module we're going to be taking a look at application control. We're going to be looking at app blocking and whitelisting and tons of other things, and joining me to do that is Mike. Mike, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. Hi, I'm Mike Donoski. If you've seen some of the previous modules, you've seen me before, as well as my colleague David Alessi, who covered the first module on mobile application management. As he had mentioned, we are support engineers, support topic owners for Windows Phone, working out of Dallas, Texas, supporting our enterprise customers with their needs, both proactive and reactive as they come across. And so, focusing on Windows Phone, we're going to help you out today with looking into some great features that you can enable and some applications that you can manage on the Windows Phone through SCCM, working with Intune in a hybrid environment.
And we're going to do that by starting to take a look at the last parts of the application lifecycle management process, the reporting parts of that process. We're then going to have a look at how policies can affect the applications that are installed onto a Windows Phone device. And then finally we're going to take a look at assigned access. Kind of think of that as taking a Windows Phone, turning off all of the features except for exactly the ones that you want to be available to your end users. Could be a particular application, could be for a very particular need, like, say, for example, turning a Windows Phone device into a point-of-sale device. So, whereabouts are we going to make our start? Application lifecycle management, I think.
Yeah, we're going to jump right into a demo here. So we've got our SCCM console open here on the left. And on the right here, we've just got a test device. So on the left here, we're looking at our content status. And as you can see here, this is where you're going to go once you deploy something to see if it's actually deployed and if you're getting any responses back from the device when it goes to query to see if everything is going successfully. So there's a couple ways you can do this. One of the quickest ways is you can go to deployments. And so if you've seen our previous demo, and we can check this again with one of our other demos that we do in this module, you can click on a deployment and view its status. And what that's going to do is it's going to go ahead and give you a quick summary on how everything's going in your environment. As you can see, this is great. We're only pushing to one device, which is our test device, and we're having success. So this is everything green. You can set this up to give you different sort of reports when things aren't being met. We're also going to do a couple quick queries. So if you go up to queries, if you have the servicing role installed, you can see some very good information that's going to help you manage your environment. So here we're looking at all of the devices we have enrolled. We can go in and do some reports. Say that we want to see, say that there's an app that came out that maybe there's a security vulnerability. It's been checked in the store, but despite all efforts, something came through. You can go in, or it might be one of your line of business apps. You can go in and check by GUID for the that specific GUID and see what users have it installed. Here we're going to go ahead and look at basic app deployment. Let's see. We're going to run this.
You might also, of course, just want to know who's installed Halo onto one of their phones that's a company-owned asset. You might just want to know, is anybody actually going and installing Halo onto their devices?
Exactly.
Yeah, you might have a big problem with that.
So here we have a choice on what we want to choose by. We're going to go ahead and do that by collection. We're going to do a user collection. You can also do it by application and supply that GUID for the application. We're going to get our selection. We're going to do MVA demo and see what applications we have. Let's see. Going to do all. All right, we're going to go ahead and view our report here. Again, we're looking at our MVA collection for all of the applications and see what we get in our report. If you watched Module 3 where we deployed apps, this is the collection that we were deploying our apps to.
This is kind of one of those interesting things. It's probably going to come back to us with report answers quite quickly. We don't have lots of devices out there. There's not tons and tons of information inside of our SQL database, so it's going to come back quite quickly. Your mileage may vary here. It may take some time to run some of these reports.
So here we've got our 3 applications that we have on these devices. It says success is 0%. That could be for multiple reasons. We're going to go ahead and scroll over a bit. You can see the date created, modification time, and the version of the apps. So you get the idea on just how powerful this tool is. Another great way to see what's deployed is simply by going to the user or device. So we're going to go to our MVA demo user. We're going to go see properties, and we can see what's deployed. This is great for if you're in your test environment and you have a bunch of different test users and you want to go enroll one on a new device. You want to make sure that you're not going to enroll into a configuration baseline that's going to lock down that device.
Yeah.
And
it is showing you literally your baselines, your applications all together, and all of the applications that you've set to uninstall as well.
Exactly. Great. So that is reporting, and moving on, we're going to show you another great feature.
So we're going to look at how policies affect apps.
Exactly.
Right, so if we move back to the deck very quickly, we've got a couple of screenshots in there, some stuff that you want to talk to.
Yeah, definitely. So we talked about policies in our previous modules, but really in this section we're going to talk about how these policies are going to affect the application experience and app management. Real quick here on the slide, we've got that, as we saw in some of the previous modules, that we can disable the Store and Internet Explorer. We can also disable Cortana. What we're going to focus on here in this next demo is allowing and denying apps through an allow and deny list. And we're also going to look at copy and paste blocking, which we did before, which affects how apps are going to be able to interact with each other. So we're going to jump right into app allow deny. So here we are in our configuration items screen under our MVA demo folder, and we're going to go ahead and create a new configuration item. We're going to go ahead and name this our MVA demo. And you know what? Let's go ahead and disable the games app. So we're going to, actually I'm going to rename that so that I know it's specifically a deny app. So if I see that coming across in my reporting later, because a user is complaining that his Halo game isn't working, we know exactly what's going on there. As we saw in some of the previous modules, I'm going to go ahead and specify that it is for a mobile device. And here's the interesting part. So currently in Intune, there's no UI for this feature, mostly because the way that we implement it is through a custom XML blob that you're going to have to create yourself. There are some great samples in the MDM white paper, which is available out on TechNet. Luckily, I have some prepared for us today. So
you don't have to type in raw XML just in order to do that. Good to be able to copy and paste.
Yes. So the way we're going to do this is we're going to go ahead and click this box here at the bottom that says configure additional settings that are not in the default settings group. And we're going to be taken to this page. Here's where we can add a custom setting. So we're going to create a setting. I'm going to call it, we'll just call it deny games. And you can do this for any, as I'm going to show you in the XML, you can do this for any app that's available, so long as you have the GUID. Something to note is that if it is an inbox app, you will need the GUID that is available in the app manifest. Also, if you're writing your own app that you're going to be pushing out, you're going to be able to find that GUID in the app manifest file. So let's see. Here we have our OMA URI that we have to specify. That's basically when the policy comes down to the phone, it's so that the phone knows what CSP to contact to write these changes to the registry so that it's actually saving the data and denying the app.
Cool.
I'm going to go back to my desktop here where I have my XML saved, and we are going to use a deny list. I'm going to go ahead and show a couple of these. So this up here at the top, this is our OMA URI. And I'm going to zoom in on this if I can. Oh, maybe not.
So that's actually, in essence, telling the device, this is the registry key. This is the location on the device where the setting's stored.
Exactly. And we're going to go ahead and paste that down here. Typos here will bring you to a screeching halt. And it'll actually show up in reporting. When you look at the deployment, it'll tell you remediation has failed. And so you can kind of troubleshoot from there. So you know that the infrastructure is working, everything's working. SCCM is pushing to Intune. The phone is going up to Intune and pulling down the policy. But when the phone is actually trying to enact that policy, it's having an issue, and it's going to send that reporting back up to SCCM, or Config Manager.
Yeah.
Yes. So make sure that this is a string. If you are going to be sending just a 1 or a 0, definitely make sure that it's an integer. This will work for, again, I keep plugging the white paper. The white paper goes through all of the CSPs that we have available. The document's really intended if you're going to be writing your own MDM server. So all the information, imagine all of the information that would be required for that, you have available for just your settings here. So this looks all good. We know what we're doing here. And now we are in this list. Easy way to find it, sort by one of these empty settings, and we'll find it right here. We're going to select it, and then I'm going to jump back. So if you watched our previous module, this will look familiar. We're going to set our rule. So this is the compliance rule, basically the logic statement that the configuration item is going to be evaluating.
Yep.
And if it's found not to be true, we're going to go ahead and remediate this. Again, this is a very, very important step of pushing out a policy, to definitely click remediate. Otherwise, you're just going to get a report on who has games denied. Probably not going to come back with anything.
Yeah.
And you'll soon realize that that's why. So here I have a formatted list. When I say formatted, the difference here is that with the other version, we actually have it in a single line. So that's going to be important because that single line is what we're actually going to be entering into that tiny UI box here. It's quite small. The whole XML will fit. So just trust me on it and test by yourself and verify
that's just
it.
a case of taking out all the carriage returns on the ends of the lines to fit it onto one line. It's no big deal.
Exactly. And so here we go. We've got our app policy version. And so when we're looking at our XML here, we've got our deny part. And here we have a little comment here just to remind us. So when we look at this XML, we know what we're doing. We're denying the games app with that GUID. And so we're going to specify the product ID. Another caveat here is that this must be lowercase. So I've already gone and formatted this back over to one line, but while we're kind of talking about syntax and syncml, I'm going to go back and show you another example. So here's just all of the different possibilities you have when you're customizing your XML. You can see here at the top, we've got just the standard syncml configuration there. We've got a deny list here. We're denying app 1. This is just an example again. We've got a windowsphone.com GUID here. Mm-hmm. If this is an internal app, you're going to have to definitely either go to the white paper and grab it, or if it's a line of business app, find it in the app manifest, or once you load it into SCCM, you'll see the GUID there. Another easy way to do, and what we've actually done in our test environment, so lessons learned to you guys out there, is you're going to want to... You can actually do it by publisher. So you can specify your own publisher name as an allow. And we'll go over an allow list in a minute. And real quick, let me do something to help you guys see this. We're going to go ahead and run Zoom It, which is a great tool, especially when you're doing demos, so that you can zoom in on this type of information. So let's see if that works. Yes, yeah. Perfect. A Control-1 will bring you right in, close and tight, so we can take a good close look at this. Here we go, right up here at the top, we've got our deny app with Windows Phone. Whoop. Bring us back down over here. And there we go. Perfect. So we're denying app 1 with windowsphone.com GUID, and then we're specifying, so here the actual syntax is that we do app product ID, specify the product ID. You can also do a publisher name. I recommend doing an allow list for your own publisher name so that you don't push out your company. You have an allow list, you specify only the few apps you want. It kind of slips your mind, and suddenly your company portal is no longer accessible by your users. Yep. And then that also is a future proof, so if you push out a line of business app later, it's going to be published by you. It's going to be allowed automatically so long as that's on all of your devices. Here we are denying our publisher Contoso. We're also denying our publisher Fabricam, but we're going to put a little exception in there. We're going to allow app product ID with that specific GUID as well. So
it's in essence that's saying if Fabricam has published an app with this GUID, then that's okay, but everything else by Fabricam, we don't want that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Great.
It's kind of cool that you can mix and match those the allow and the deny list like that. As granularly as you can do that.
it's extremely customizable for exactly what you want. And I'm going to show you guys an allow list as well. Of course, the difference is an allow list. So let's start with a deny list because it's a little more straightforward. A deny list is, say that there's just a few apps out there that you know that you don't want users to use. The problem with that is that once you start getting into hundreds of apps or thousands of apps that you don't want users to use, it becomes very hard to manage. So we also have an allow list where you can specify only the apps that you want a user to be allowed to install. So here we're allowing only the settings app. So this is a fairly tight...
locked down.
Yes, this is very locked down. And we're actually going to deploy this to show you guys what it looks like on a device. So you'll get a very good default setting so you know where your good starting point is when you start adding apps into this allow list to customize your user experience in your environment. So we'll go back to the desktop. We're going to grab my allow list here. Whoop. Allow list. We've got it already formatted here in one line. Good thing to note is that it is the same exact CSP. The same CSP handles allow and deny lists. And you'll actually see here the same XML tag here for app policy. And I'll show you the difference there when we get to assigned access on some of the other options there. So we've got that copied. We're going to go back to Config Manager. And we're going to paste this value in here. Perfect. And then I'm just going to give it a quick look through, make sure that everything looks. Yeah, I see some allows. I see a GUID, product ID, and there's our nice comment so that when we look back at this, we know what we're doing. And then just some syntax bits.
Yeah, and you just want to be checking for things like the square character that just can randomly appear sometimes inside of a text file. Yeah.
So great. This is all created. We're going to close this. And I'm actually going to take a quick look at this again just to make sure everything looks good. All right, great. We've got equals here. We're remediating. We have a name, and we have our entry there. Great. So we're going to go ahead and look at supported platforms. Of course, since this is a custom setting, we won't be getting any report back on whether or not a device knows if it's going to be able to support this because it's not sure. So we're going to go ahead and push this through. Something else. So I talked about a deny list in which we deny just a few apps. I'm going to show you what that looks like on a device here. Here you can see we've pushed down if you watched our previous modules, we disabled IE and we disabled the store. That configuration item is still living on this device, but there's no, so we've actually disabled the games as well.
Yeah.
You can see here. So you get a nice little UI prompt so you don't just fail out to a black screen and your users are confused. It actually lets them know this app has been disabled by a company policy. Please contact your company support person for help. The same as when you have denied through another policy. So that's great. We're going to go ahead and deploy this out. We can close this guy. So we have MVA deny games. We're going to create a baseline. So we're actually not denying games. We're allowing only settings. But I'm going to go ahead and push it out anyways. I'm actually going to make this MVA allow settings configuration baseline. Just something I've gotten in the habit of just with my own. That's my own personal thing I like to do is throw it in there because you can see a list of items or properties and you've named them all the same thing and you're like, okay, is this a baseline or the setting or...
Yeah, it's something I quite often do when I'm trying to work out this new feature, how is it coming together. I start to just tag things with CB for configuration baseline or CI for configuration item, just so that I know what's going on where. But it's really good practice to go and do that in a production environment as well.
And actually, it looks like I have double named something, so I am going to go through and I am going to rename this. It is all caps, but I just want to be 100% certain that what I'm doing is correct. So we're going to do allow settings. Great. So we're going to go ahead and add that to a configuration baseline. We're going to be running through the same process for assigned access, and I'll show you guys that in a minute here. So we're going to create a new configuration baseline, and if you have a configuration baseline that's already being pushed to a device, you can go ahead and add this configuration item to it, but just for my own sanity and
Yeah, and just for ease of
keeping
demo.
everything organized, I am just going to go ahead and add it. So we have renamed it to MVA allow settings. Great. And we're going to name this.
So the implicit thing with a with an allow list is as soon as you allow an app, you deny everything else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So now that we have that set up, we're going to push it out. If you've worked with allow deny lists before in big windows, it's very similar as far as what your logic is on how you're going to.
It's kind of like app
put that
blocker,
out.
isn't it? That's
Exactly.
kind of the similar kind of approach to allowing and denying apps.
So we're going to go ahead and deploy this to, oh, not this guy. We're going to deploy it to this user here, who's in our user collection of MVA demo, which is right here. And we're going to remediate non-compliant rules. Of course, always remediate, unless you could not remediate if you just want to report.
Yep.
If you want to see some basic settings.
Yeah,
Or
if you wanted to know how many devices you were going to cripple by just enabling just the settings application,
Yes.
then it could be kind of useful.
Great. So there we go. We are deployed. If you've watched any of our previous modules, you'll understand that the architecture here requires a little bit of time. There's a lot going on behind the scenes. We're actually taking everything from our SQL database on this config manager server. It's going up to Intune. It's going to live in Intune. And then the phone is going to be able to run back to Intune to pull these policies down. A lot of moving parts in the background.
Yeah.
So
Might take us a couple of refreshes to get that through. It might take you a couple of refreshes to get that through when you're testing this back at your own lab as well.
might be a good time to go get lunch or go grab a snack or
Yeah.
something and come back. So while we're doing that and we're kind of waiting for that to flow down, we're going to jump right into our next section with assigned access. So if we go back to our slides, assigned access, if you've worked with Windows, of course it's a new feature there as well. It's a great way to specifically crunch down just exactly what you want the users to be able to do. You can specify multiple apps, but maybe a single app is a great experience for you. So if you want just a simple device that's just going to be running your line of business app, it's the only thing your customers can use. Assigned access also locks down buttons, so they're not going to be doing using the search feature. And also the home feature, I believe, can be locked down. And then also there's some cool stuff in the XML that there's actually some custom buttons. So if you have an OEM who's maybe putting a Facebook button or something interesting like that, something creative onto the device, you can actually lock that down as well. So it's kind of future-proof in that sense. We're going to also be able to push down settings profiles. So if you have a specific Wi-Fi access point that you only want these users to be using, you can do that.
Push that down.
And then a great thing about assigned access is you can really get deep in what you couple it with as far as your settings. So it pairs really, really well with app allow deny. And so you can leave the store enabled, you can deny apps in the store, but you can still allow for those apps to be updated, where if you deny the store or disable the store, you still can't update those store apps. Yeah. So it works really well with a bunch of other features. You can turn off the ability to manage Wi-Fi profiles from the device, so you can push the profiles you want and then disable the user from connecting to other profiles. Very great for security. You can also go ahead and disable unenrollment, so your users can't unenroll. You can also disable factory reset. So when you're talking about wanting a device that only does one or two things, and you don't want a lot of extra data going out all over the place, you can lock it down very, very tightly.
Yeah, it makes it really perfect for being able to deploy a kind of point-in-time solution for something, like, for example, being able to lock down a device to being a point-of-sale device, or locking down a device to being a census device, or something like that, where maybe they only have one or two Wi-Fi profiles. Very, very cool.
Yeah. Feature I've had a lot of fun with. Of course, when you're testing, be sure to leave yourself ways to get back out. So if you are going to shut down all the different settings that you can configure, I guess that's another point. You can go through the big list of settings and actually specify only the settings you want to be configurable from the device. One thing about that is if you don't give yourself the ability to unenroll, or you shut off Wi-Fi, or you disable factory reset, it quickly becomes very difficult to get back to a usable state. It's fine in emulators because you can just go ahead and reflash the device or the emulator. But when you're talking about physical devices, it could become a hairy situation very quickly.
Yeah, refreshing a physical device is kind of hard.
Also, another important thing to note is that a lot of those settings where you are making a very customized device that's very locked down are only intended for corporate devices. You're not going to want to do this to your BYOD guys who bring in their device just because they want to use the internal app and get to some email features and get some certificates in VPN. You don't want to make it a horrible experience for them by locking down those apps and making it...
Yeah, and what you'd probably do realistically there is you create a collection which would be your lockdown devices, maybe your point-of-sale devices. The people inside of that collection wouldn't be the same users that are inside of the collection for the BYOD devices. You'd want to target that very differently. And that would make complete sense because the chances are that the people that are using those devices that have been completely locked down, completely set up with assigned access, they're not going to be using their own accounts to sign on to them.
And actually, another great feature on that is that in Config Manager, if we go back to my Config Manager session here, you can see that we can actually click on a device. So let's go ahead and do MVA Demo 1. And if we wanted to, we could actually change ownership on that device. That's no longer a personal device, that's a company device. So if we go ahead and run a collection that's going to add all the company devices to it, and then deploy just to that collection, we're going to get all of those company devices there. And every time you have a new user who's using it, you don't have to dive into your Config Manager console and configure it. It'll be nice and squeaky clean automatic. So we're going to go ahead and dive right into our assigned access demo. I, of course, have our prepared XML, but let's go ahead and look at what's actually being pushed down here. Oh, that's not the correct one. We want to look at this one. So here is my formatted XML. And again, this doesn't cover all of the options that are available for configuring this XML. This is just a nice sample. The MDM white paper that's available on TechNet, and we'll provide a link to in our notes for this module, goes very, very in-depth on all the things that you're going to be able to configure. Here you can see that we've got another feature I forgot to mention, Action Center. You can disable Action Center, or the Notification Center in Windows Phone 8.1. The name for it here in the syntax is Action Center. You'll notice there is a little bit of back and forth between what it's called on the device and what we call it in the syncml, but it's pretty straightforward. Here we are talking about our apps. So we are specifying 3 apps we want to be able to run. I can tell you from experience that this is Office, Settings, and Internet Explorer, I believe, but we'll see that when we come back out. Always good to leave comments, of course. This one is not as picky about having your GUIDs in all lowercase, but as you can see here, we're pinning this to start. We're going to specify the size of the tile, the location of the tile. We're going to talk, then we're ending our pin to start an application, but you'll also notice right after the GUID, we're specifying whether or not this is auto run. This is a really great feature if you do have just one single app. As soon as they start up the phone, instead of being greeted with they are going to get the lock screen, of course, if it's locked down, but instead of being greeted with their tiles or settings, you can send them straight into the app. So you have a very streamlined experience. It's great for, as you mentioned, point-of-sales devices. And here the X and Y location. X, of course, is your... Let's see, that is your left and right, and Y is up and down. So this is a medium, so it's 0, 0. The next one is medium as well, so I've put that at 0, 2, so that it's just slightly below it. And then we've got 0, 4 for the location down here. Let's see, on that last app. And so you can get pretty fine-grained with exactly what you want the user experience to look like.
I'm presuming those XY locations are actually pixels, and they're small tile locations.
They're tile location, exactly. So... one would just be half of a normal size tile, so essentially a quarter of the screen. Again, the white paper has a pretty good explanation on this, and you probably will have to test around with it to get a handle on it. The next part I'm going to scroll down to, so we're closing off our app section, we're getting into buttons. We are talking about a button lockdown list, as I mentioned earlier. We've got a couple options here that we're talking about. You also have to specify the action of the button. So if you just want to disable being able to press and hold and bring up the voices or the Cortana in Windows Phone 8.1, you can do that by just disabling the search button, press and hold. So here we're disabling the camera button. I misspoke earlier. You can't disable the home button. It is the camera button, the search button, and then custom 1, 2, 3, which are, as I mentioned, buttons that may be entered by the OEM at later times.
Yeah.
So just to be safe, we're locking all of those down. Another option that you have is you can disable, you can actually remap a button. I'm not doing that here, but you could say, instead of hitting the camera button, I want that to launch our line of business app. And so they hit the camera button, and that's going to launch their line of business app.
Yeah, that'd be quite cool. Yeah.
Extremely powerful. Here we're disabling menu items. So that's the context menu when you hold down a button. So being able to pin to start, unpin to start, we're going to disable that. Moving down to settings. Here's where I was talking about you can specify just exactly fine-grain the settings that you want. Here we want Wi-Fi so that we always can configure to get back to our MDM server.
Yep.
We're putting About so that you can factory reset the phone. We're going to be able to provide some feedback. And then we're also doing Company Account, which is Workplace in Windows Phone 8.1, so that we can go in there and sync if we need, which in a demo like this, we will definitely need to do. So I'm going to go ahead and show you guys I say it's powerful. If you don't believe me, I want to show you this. This is a sample XML straight out of the white paper. You can see that this admin, maybe this is his full-time job creating this XML. This is quite intricate on just exactly all of the apps that he's specifying, where they are. This gets down. So actually a great tool for this is if you want to just start toying around with assigned access, is you can actually take this sample and just start omitting things that you don't want in your image.
Yeah. Cool idea.
So here we are looking at all of the different settings that are in here. I believe this list is thorough and captures all of them. So if you don't want VPN, just take it off the list, go ahead and deploy it. So here we go. Let's get started. First, we got this guy that we went ahead and pushed the deny list to, or the allow list to rather, so he should be able to do nothing but what we told him that he was allowed to do. And once that's done syncing, we'll look at that. In the meantime, on the left, let's go ahead and get back into it. Let's go create a new configuration item. Let's call this one MVA assigned access. Whoop. And we're pushing this to a mobile device. I'm going to move a little bit quicker on this one. We're going to configure an additional setting. If you need to pause for this, go ahead and pause. We're going to create a setting. We do need our OMA URI. I feel that by this time, if you're unsure where to get it, you could probably guess.
Is it in the white paper?
I think it is.
Yeah.
I think it is.
We will make sure that we have a link to the white paper.
Of course.
That is actually just one line, isn't it?
This is one line.
It is just that it's reached the very end of Notepad's capabilities.
It's actually wrapped, yeah. It's, yep. So that's it. It looks great there. A little bit hard to manage if you want to make some small tweaks. You can just put a couple returns in here, manage what you need, or if you're just switching out a GUID, you can do that, but just make sure that you know where you are.
There's a couple of other text editor apps out there that make it a little bit easier to manage single line XML.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and not paste this in here. Almost made a mistake. We are using our OMA URI. We are not onto the XML blob yet. Here we go. We're going to paste that right in there. Perfect. Looks good. Assigned access looks spelled correctly. And you'll notice that the vendor MSFT part here in the beginning is the same as the previous, but the rest of this is telling it where to go, where it differs from when we were pushing this down to the allow deny. So we're going to select OK. Oh, I did not name it. Oh, that's where we went wrong.
It's handily named that for us.
Let's start that guy over. We can change that later. So let's call this rule for assigned access. It's going to be a value equals. So this is our OMA URI that we're pushing to. And these following values, again, it doesn't look like it should go in there, but it will. paste that right in there. Just do a quick glance through it, just to make sure that it looks like everything's there. Yeah, I see some button event names, just to make sure that both halves of it, maybe you just selected one line. Looks like everything's there. We're obviously remediating again. I can almost guarantee that if you ran a report for that and didn't remediate, you would probably get nothing back.
Yeah.
Unless you've got some really top-notch people out there who are setting their own assigned access on their phones. So here we go. I'm going to edit this. Nope, that's great. Okay, next. Of course, this isn't going to know whether or not this is applicable to these devices. We're going to take a look here. That looks fine. I'm going to close that out. I'm going to go ahead and close this as well while we're here. Just to clean up a bit. And so we're looking at assigned access. We want to go ahead and add that to a configuration baseline within our MVA demo folder. I'm going to sync this guy just for good measure over here on the right while we're going. Again, as a reminder, he's got our allow list over there where he's only allowed to run settings.
Yep.
Exactly. So we're going to do MVA assigned access. And just to make sure, I'm going to throw a 1 at the beginning, just for simplicity's sake when I'm digging for it in the deploy. Oh. And if you're paying attention, you've noticed I've just made a mistake.
Definitely some configuration data.
Yeah, I'm missing the configuration item. Exactly. So we're going to go ahead and add that back. If you do go to properties, you can always add configuration items back to a configuration baseline. And we have called this MVA assigned access. There we go. Intuitive. All right, great. And we're going to go ahead and hit OK. We're going to deploy this guy. Now that we have everything in there, of course, it's one MVA assigned access, remediate non-compliant settings, remediate maintenance window. We're going to select our collection. We're going to push this to this same device. Before we push that out there, and I say push, what I really mean is that we're making the policy available.
Yeah.
It is a polling architecture, so we're not actually pushing, it's polling. Let's see what this guy looks like. So there we go. We've got him denied on games. I may have put a different... Oh, there we go, actually. This is right. Okay, yeah, I just don't have anything pinned to the front. So this is what an allow list looks like. And you might ask, why do I see all these other apps available here? So there are certain inbox apps that you actually can't deny. So we've got calculator, calendar, camera, battery saver, alarms. I recommend testing this first before going out and deploying it. You can see that our Bing apps here are finance, food and drink, games, health and fitness have been disabled. So by default, this isn't going to disable absolutely everything in the store. You can see that settings is still enabled, which is the allow list that I put in there. But you aren't totally locking it down. If you want a total lockdown, that's when you're going to start thinking about crossing over into using assigned access.
Right.
So let's go ahead and push this out to MVA demo, which is this guy here on the right that we just got. And we're going to go ahead and select that and send it over. I'm going to bring us back here. I'm going to go ahead and go to Workplace. Oh, we didn't go to Workplace there. A little hard using a touch device emulator in an RD, a remote desktop session,
with a touch
remoting
screen.
Into another with a touch screen. Yes, so we're peeling back the layers here. So we have this out. While we're waiting for it to push, actually, I'm going to go ahead and show you guys one that I've already set up. This is what it's going to look like. It doesn't look like a Windows phone, really, at first glance. It kind of looks like more of like an embedded handheld or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
But I assure you, this is a Windows phone. We've got Office down here, and actually you can see my app allow deny list. In effect, I've actually disabled Internet Explorer on this one as well, separately in a deny list. This is my one that I had prepped before. In our other one, I don't believe we'll have that set down. Actually, we will, because we are denying Internet Explorer. Yeah. So you can see here, this is pretty cool. If we go over to apps, that's all we've got. That's all we've got on this phone.
Nice.
Kind of seems a little bit of a step backwards. We spent all this time making all these features, and we're going ahead and shutting them down. But if this is exactly the scenario you're looking for, this probably looks amazing.
Yeah.
If you just want to be able to put these settings down on the device, there you go. Perfect. The nice thing about this is that we can actually go back in here and sync, because I've allowed us to do that. So while we're waiting for assigned...
So just to clarify one point there, with the allow list that we set the settings app on the allow list.
Yes.
And the effect of that was that we had the settings app, but some other apps as well.
Yes.
If we'd wanted to say deny Internet Explorer, we could have been explicit and said deny Internet Explorer.
Exactly.
And in configuration with that allow list.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And actually, to even add another layer to that, there's the option within Config Manager to deny that explicitly through your regular UI.
Yeah.
So if you want to do that, depending on what you want to do, if you're only going to disable store, i.e. maybe games, you can do that through the UI. If you need to start getting really deep in what you want to deny, you can go ahead and use the XML.
Yeah.
So let's see here. Another cool thing I'm going to show you is I'm going to go ahead and restart this device, because we have auto runs running on Office. This is actually, this device here is using the same exact XML that I pushed out to this device. We're going to sync this again. A lot of the times when I'm doing tests, I'll just kind of let it sit there and sync for a while, 2 to 5 minutes, depending on how your environment's configured, maybe a little longer. Here we have our virtual machine assigned access turned off. We're going to turn them back on. But if all else fails, try and sync again. If it's been more than maybe 20 to 30 minutes, check and make sure you've configured everything correctly. Make sure that your configuration baseline is point to the right collection. Make sure that your configuration baseline consists of the correct configuration items. And then also that the collection contains the user that you're testing with.
Yeah.
Tons of layers here. And actually, that might be a good reason to use Intune. A little more straightforward if you're a small environment or you only have a few users who are going to be using mobile devices that you want to manage. It's a little, if you're not experienced with this isn't something that you're very familiar with, maybe you haven't used Config Manager before, that might be a great opportunity for you to dig in on Intune.
Yeah.
So here we go. We're going to see how auto run works with Office. Woo! Boom. There you go. So you start up your device straight out of your pocket, and there you are right in Office, and you're good to go. Great. If you do go ahead and go back to your start screen, you've only got your 3 apps, and that's it. Nice. Let's see if this has come down to this guy yet. Another important thing to note, so as you guys have seen in our demos in this course, a lot of these settings will come across automatically, and you'll just sort of see them populate on the phone. You'll see apps show up, apps disappear. You'll see little disabled signs under things. With kiosk mode, it does require a restart. So it might be there, but you won't know until you restart. So another great thing that I use when I'm just testing, if I know I'm only going to be using assigned access as a test, just to kind of get an idea of what I want the UI to look like when it gets down there, is I'll actually put another policy in that configuration baseline that it's going to be obvious in the UI that the policies are there. Yeah. So I'm not restarting the phone, going back in, going into settings, going into workplace, syncing again.
Yeah. That's actually exactly what I do. I normally set a password policy and increment the number of digits by 1.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you know everything on the server side is working, Intune side is working, and we're just kind of waiting for everything to come down to the phone.
Yeah.
So let's see. Just give it a little bit more time. That might be enough time. And again, it's hard to tell here, but let's go ahead and restart this guy. Just turn him off, start him back up. And if you have any questions about the assigned access, MDM white paper has great sections on there that go through. Not to plug it too much, but I'm telling you, it's a wonderful feature or
white paper
resource that we have out there. Yeah. App allow deny list is also covered very thoroughly there. And once this guy boots up, we'll see if he is in assigned access mode.
Taking him a little longer than the previous one did, so
yeah,
maybe something's changing.
Got quite a few of these guys running here.
In the background.
Oh, are we there? We'll wait here for a minute and see if he pops in. And in the meantime, another thing you can do is if it doesn't look like, yep, he hasn't gotten it yet,
he's not got it yet.
That's fine. We can actually go in and you can see, so when you're working with XMLs, it's very, very, very likely that you might mess up just a very tiny bit, and it's going to end up with the entire XML failing to remediate against the phone.
Yeah.
So you're going to be able to go ahead and see that in here. If we go and right-click and go straight to properties, yeah, not necessarily properties. We want to go in down here. We can see where it's deployed, who it's deployed to. We see that compliance is 0. We can go ahead and view status correctly from here, or directly from here. Run a summarization. Hit refresh, and it will tell you here an error. Oh, there we go. We remediated, and we failed remediation. So,
yeah, but that's good to know. It's great to know where you've got the access.
Something in the XML wasn't correct. That's fine. Time to go run it back in.
Yeah.
I apologize. One last plug for the white paper. It does give you...
It does give you that information.
It gives you instructions on how to go in and actually verify your XML. And so you can actually run it against something and make sure that, okay, syntax is good, it's ready to go.
Yeah.
Cool.
So
great.
That brings us to the end of the infomercial for the white paper for Windows Phone.
Yes.
So coming up, the next module, we're going to be having a look at mobile content management, mobile information management. We've got tons of resources that are available for download and for your exploration, including taking a look at the white paper, which we may have mentioned once or twice inside of this video. Thanks very much for watching, and join us in the next module.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Module 5 of this MVA course on Windows Phone 8.1 Enterprise Mobility Management. Earlier on in these videos, we've had a look at mobile device management, which is being able to assign settings to a device, being able to provision them, or do enrollment, also being able to do unenrollment. We've also had a look at mobile application management. So that's being able to deploy apps out to a device, and also, in the case of Windows Phone 8.1, being able to do assigned access to deliver a device which is pretty locked down, pretty controlled, just has the apps on it that you want to have there as an enterprise. In these next two videos, we're going to be having a look at mobile content and information management, which is the ability to do things like encryption, remote wipes, and also things like app sandboxing on our devices. And again, joining me for this section is Mike. Mike, do you want to just introduce yourself very quickly?
Yeah, certainly. If you've seen any other of the modules, you'd be familiar with me and my colleague David Alessi. We are support engineers who are support topic owners for the Windows Phone out in Dallas, Texas, supporting our biggest enterprise customers when they call in with their large enterprise issues. And we're ramping up for Phone, Windows Phone 8.1, because we're really focusing on the enterprise with this one. It's going to be great.
Yep.
Really exciting times.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing we're going to look at is going to be managing those devices, managing the devices themselves in this first section. Basically, you could kind of think of this as the information when it's at rest. And then the next section, we're going to have a look at the information when you're trying to connect up to various different services. So we're going to take a look at remote wipe, we're going to take a look at encryption, and app sandboxing in that order. And without further ado, on to managing the data on those devices.
Right. And to start off, we're going to jump right into a demo on remote wipe so that we have enough time to kind of sync and get everything down to the device. So we're going to jump straight into that. Remote wipe, if you're familiar, in the past it may have been a full wipe where someone loses their device, they call in, the enterprise used to be through Exchange ActiveSync. You still can do that if you have that in your environment, but it would wipe the entire device.
Yeah.
Which is not exactly a great BYOD solution. If you lose your device or something like that, you're going to be a little more reluctant to call in and have that device completely wiped if you have pictures, contacts, all that kind of stuff on there. So now with Windows Phone 8.1, it is a selective wipe. So it's only going to remove anything that's basically put on from enrollment. So you're looking at profiles, policies, any apps that are on there, anything in the company portal that came through. So we're going to jump right in to our SCCM console here. And we are under Assets and Compliance here on the bottom left. And we're going to find a device to wipe. So if you've been paying it, or if you've seen our other modules, we've been using this user here for, let's see, let's check who this user is before we go ahead and wipe him. always a good test. Actually, if we go into the company app, which is disabled, we'll go into settings, workplace, and let's find out who this guy is so we can wipe him out. This could be a lost device, no longer working for the company, or it's just time to unenroll.
Yeah, it could be that they've decided that they want to go and sell their device.
Yeah.
And they don't want to put it onto your favourite sales website with all of that company and personal information on there. Might be a bad plan.
Or if that's a part of your device recycle program for your business.
Yeah.
If that's a part of your life cycle for your devices. So we are going to go find MVA demo for this device. And here we are right here. We've got MVA demo. We're going to go into a simple right click, and you can see right here very quickly we've got retire or wipe. And if we select that, we've got two different options. We can wipe the company content and retire the mobile device from Config Manager, or we can wipe the mobile device and retire it from Config Manager. So here is company content and wipe the mobile device is the differentiator there. We have a little warning here that does say this may permanently remove all data and return to factory settings. Some device types cannot be wiped. So we've done some. Which one would you like to do? We've done some other unenrollment.
Let's go with the first option then.
First option?
Yeah.
All right, great. Let's go ahead and do that. And we just have a little bit of a information blob here. When you retire a mobile device, the information that is associated. We'll just zoom in here just for reference. So it's basically letting you know everything that's going to be deleted. It's everything that came down through the portal, essentially.
Yeah. And it's an interesting point there. It's kind of important that the mobile device will be retired when it next downloads client policy.
Exactly.
So it's not just going to happen instantly. It's going to wait until it polls for client policy, and then it's going to do the remote wipe at that point.
Exactly. So that's something to consider. So if you do have an employee leaving the environment, you might want to do a remote wipe prior to maybe the last time it's in their hands, so that it's going to be unenrolled before all of that. Or if you have someone who you want to unenroll before they go into an area where they're not going to have cellular data or Wi-Fi data, if you know you're going to need to unenroll it, plan ahead, do it before. It's not going to be instantaneous, as we're going to see in our demo, which is why we're going to start off and do this first, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this, and we'll go from there. So we should be, I went ahead and clicked OK. We're going to sync here, and you'll notice another way to confirm is, did I not? I may have not done it. Yes, we're going to do that. So you should notice in the UI here, you can cancel or retire the wipe. And so that's a good way to just make sure that this does have a pending wipe. As soon as the phone wipes and sends back the notification that it's been wiped, it will remove itself from your devices list here in Config Manager.
And one of the things you might want to do, if you are going to do that, and you have connected through to an Exchange ActiveSync device, you might also want to block the access to the Exchange ActiveSync device, just as an extra step.
Exactly. Yeah.
So also back in the workplace app on the device itself, we could do a wipe from there, couldn't we? We
could, yeah. So two ways to do this. If you want to do a selective wipe, it's basically an unenrollment, which is going to be the trash can icon here. That's going to remove all company info. It's going to tell you here almost the same warning. It's going to say all apps and policies required by your company will also be deleted. This is also, if you've seen some of our previous modules, where you'll get, if there's anything that required user interaction when the device came down, so setting a password, and when you unenroll it, it's going to tell you that you no longer require a password. It's not going to delete the password, but it's just going to tell you that if you want to, you can go ahead and do that. Some other settings are lock screen if you don't want to use a lock screen, which we encourage still, that to use a lock screen, use a password. But if this is just a device that sits on your coffee table or something like that you know is going to be there,
maybe not necessary.
By all means, whatever fits what you want to do. We're going to go ahead and cancel that, though, because we have a remote wipe pending. And we'll go ahead and get back to our slides and kind of talk a little bit more about remote wipe and some other interesting features there. Of course, one of the great options with the Windows Phone is encryption, BitLocker encryption.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when you go ahead and wipe a device, a lot of questions that we get a lot of times is it a full wipe? Are we rewriting zeros over everything? And actually, it's a unique scenario, because what's happening is everything on the phone is encrypted at that point. The storage is all encrypted. The key is stored in the TPM. So when you actually do a wipe, a full factory reset rather versus a selective wipe, if you're retiring the device fully, going to go resell it, it's going to actually drop that key out. So it's not overwriting all of the data that's in the storage, but it will all be encrypted with no key available.
So thus making it essentially inaccessible to anybody.
Exactly.
They'd have to do some. They'd have to get some really complicated bits of hardware out in order to be able to go and try and get access to that data. And it's not something that is going to be easy, even to somebody that's really, really motivated.
Yeah, and it's not. You're not talking about spindles, spindle hard drives.
Yeah.
This is quite advanced storage in here. That's a little bit more difficult to.
And SD card encryption as well. We also encrypt SD cards using BitLocker, and we can turn that on and off through config man and Intune.
Another cool feature in Windows Phone 8.1 is you can store apps on your SD card, and that's all encrypted. It's locked with your per device, per user key, so that if someone else takes your SD card and sticks it in and you have your bank app on there, they're not going to be able to just open that app up in state and have all your saved info. Mm-hmm. It's going to be there. Of course, that's going to be encrypted separate from your unencrypted data, which is going to be things like your music, your photos, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
Great. So let's see if we got this wipe yet. In the meantime, we can head back to the slides. Is there anything you'd like to add about BitLocker?
Other than the fact that we have got BitLocker encryption on all of our Windows Phone devices now. It's kind of a big thing to have encryption built into the device, and to have that ability to be able to do the remote write. I think it's pretty cool.
Right. And it is all TPM BitLocker too. So it's the physical device. It's magnificent, and it fits in with if you have a requirement and you were kind of concerned about bringing mobile devices into your environment before, maybe if it's a very locked down environment. Adding this TPM and this BitLocker functionality really opens up your options for maybe introducing some mobile devices to your environment.
Do you want to take a quick explanation of applications and how apps actually work on the device, and in terms of their sandboxing and that kind of thing?
Yeah, certainly. So, a couple things there. When we start off, when we boot the device, a lot of people talk about, when you think about unsecure devices, rooting comes to mind, the term rooting. Mm-hmm. And so one quick thing about the phone is that it does use UEFI, and it's going to check against certs when things are starting up on the phone to make sure that there hasn't been any tampering with the device, with any of the stuff that happens when it boots, so that you're making sure you're getting the genuine, intended, non-tampered with files on boot.
Yeah, so that's secure boot, in other words.
Exactly.
That's the approach that we use there, so we can be sure that actually it really is the OS that was installed, that actually you are booting and somebody hasn't rooted the device maliciously.
Exactly.
Or in fact, people do root their devices intentionally as well. Probably more so a non-Windows Phone device, but it is possible.
Yeah, and so app sandboxing, a great point you brought up for that. Coming back to that, because that's sort of following the life cycle. Once you're booted up, everything's still safe, and now you're sitting there on your device and you have your apps. The apps actually can't talk to each other. So they're completely isolated, their storage is isolated, so you can't have one app going and accessing the information of another app and doing with it what it may maliciously be. And then also moving in the security picture a little higher than that, if you download an app from the Windows Store, it is checked by Microsoft, and it has signed off with a cert, so you won't be installing unsigned applications. And then on the other side of that, with line of business apps, you're kind of taking that into your own hands. So you're only going to be able to deploy through your company's store apps that are signed with your company cert that you get through Microsoft, and then those are all going to be, if you have any security vulnerabilities, you can pull those apps out. But you're signing those yourself, ensuring that there's no malicious software coming through in that direction. So I'm going to show you guys a quick demo as well. I got a couple things to show you, actually. We're going to go ahead and look here. So this is in monitoring here on the left, and we've got device management. So we can actually do a query. It's not going to come out with anything for us, but there's a mobile device that are jailbroken or rooted. So we can run this report. We can specify a collection. For this type of thing, I just want to look at all of my mobile devices. We're going to look at all values. Actually, we're going to say yes.
So this is going to show us anything which has been jailbroken or rooted that's connected, enrolled inside of our environment.
Right, which we've got all Windows Phone emulators at this point, so we should have no responses. Another great report. Let's see.
So So if we had some devices that you actually could root in there, then you might actually see them appearing.
You'd see them come up. Yep. Great. Excellent. Let's see if this guy is actually wiped yet. Thinking about it. Let's go back to assets and compliance. We'll see if he's... You can also run a report to see which devices have remote wipes pending.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if you want to say, okay, I issued a bunch of remote wipes on Saturday or Tuesday, and a couple days later I want to see how many of the devices actually got that, you can go and see which pending retires you still have waiting. So this hasn't come down yet. We'll give it a bit longer. And as you can see, it is still sitting here pending. By default, this is going to be, if you're not sitting here pressing the sync button, it's going to be around 8 hours or whatever you specify during enrollment of the device into the environment. And let's see. And if it doesn't remote wipe, we can just go ahead and wipe it on the device and show you kind of, we did it a few other times, but just show you what the UI difference is. So here we've still got Company Portal and ClickMe, which is our line of business app that we've deployed. And then you've also got a couple denied apps. We're going to go ahead and we'll just issue this. It's essentially the same command. Wait till it's deleted. And we're going to go back in here. Everything's lit back up. I've actually still got the company portal. Problem with an app. Okay, so this is just saying that it may not have completely uninstalled it yet. There may have been some conflict between the remote wipe actually being in process while we manually wiped it, and maybe there was some race condition that happened. So that just kind of shows you how quickly this comes, enacts. And it may not be removed, but at least the parts of it that it thinks are still there, it can access.
And a little earlier on as well, we pushed down an app with, which is the OneDrive app. Mm-hmm. I presume that the OneDrive app is still there.
It will stay.
Yeah, because it's a public store app. So
if it's a store app,
if it's a store app, those are going to stay in place because you don't necessarily know that just because the app is there, that the user got the app from the company portal and not just from the public store. So you don't want to take away apps that they have legitimately paid for. So you want to make sure those are staying in place.
Exactly. And another point on that is if you do have the store disabled, once it's disabled, there's going to be no updates coming to any apps that the user may have downloaded previously. So once they pop that back in, updates are going to start flowing again. Mm-hmm. They can go back into the store and download new apps as they please. So interesting. Cool.
So I think we're done. I think we've got through all the demo. That's takes us to the end of this module. Join us in the next module, and we're going to have a look at access to various different company resources and how we can control the access to those resources. Welcome to this sixth and final module of Windows Phone 8.1 Enterprise Mobility Management. Earlier on in this course, we've had a look at MDM. We've had a look at mobile application management as well. Now we're looking at mobile content management or mobile information management. In the first one of these two modules, we had a look at being able to do things with encryption, remote wipe on devices. In this module, we're going to have a look at such things as certificates, as being able to set up VPNs and email management on our devices. Joining me to go through all of this content is David. David, would you like to just introduce yourself one more time? For those
one
folks who
final
haven't seen
time, sure. My name is David Alessi. I am one of the two support topic owners for Windows Phone 8 in the enterprise. As you probably know by now, my counterpart is Mike Donosky. He's been leading you through the other modules. So today we're going to be focusing on the device access part of MIM and MCM. So Mike kind of talked about once data is on the device, how do you manage it? But right now we're going to talk about how to manage the data from the device or what the device has access to. So to start us off, we are actually going to hop right into a demo. Part of the reason for that is so we give it some time to load and sync. So we're going to start off with email. Of course, any enterprise, MIM, MCM solution or strategy is going to have to deal with email. It's ubiquitous these days. Everyone in your entire organization is going to use it extensively, and so you need a way to manage it. Luckily, with the Enterprise Feature Pack, the latest update to Windows Phone, we have a lot of options for you to be able to manage email. Profiles, pushing out a profile to your device, as well as rights management is now supported on phones. And finally, SMIME to sign and encrypt your emails. So we're going to go ahead and show you how to do some of those things. So as you can see, I'm in my SCCM or Config Manager console. And if you'll follow me down to Company Resource Access. So again, first part was about data from devices. Second part is, or data on devices. This part is for data from devices, so resource access. We're going to go ahead and start with emails. We're going to give it a name for this presentation.
So this is the kind of thing you want to set up for most enterprises because, frankly, going in and setting up your email manually can be a little bit painful for end users. They have to know things like their actual server name, if their discovery is not set up correctly, all of that kind of stuff. This kind of adds that extra bit of value that people get from enrolling their device with your company. They get their email set up for them automatically. Even more so, or even more valuable if you're setting up multiple email accounts for them automatically.
Exactly. So not only is it going to help your users, but it's also going to cut down help desk requests for people who maybe misconfigure their emails. It's just better all around for the organization to be able to push profiles out easily and without a lot of user interaction. So again, if you'll follow me through the UI, this is the location of my, we have Exchange set up, so I need to point it to the Exchange mailbox for this environment. This is just to give the actual profile a distinguishable name, because you can have a lot of email profiles on your device. So we need to be able to distinguish them from one another. We're going to keep all of these default for now, but this is important here. So SMIME is a big feature coming to Windows Phone. Not only does it allow you to encrypt your emails so that they're more secure while they're traveling to their destination, but you can also assign them yourself with your own certificate so that the person who receives the email can make sure they know that you're the one who sent the email and not someone else, trying to maliciously do a phishing attack or something like that. So we're not going to show SMIME today, but if you are configuring it, this is where you would specify your encryption certificate as well as your signing certificate. So some more settings here. Use SSL is key. If SSL fails, it will fail over. And we can also specify what content to synchronize. For now, we'll just do email just to keep it simple. And we are going to be deploying it to Windows Phone only. And then once this profile is created in Config Manager, we will be able to deploy it to the users of our choice. And we're going to go ahead and do that now. So our enrollment demo, the user collection that we're going to be deploying to is, I'm actually not sure we have a user collection for this new user that we're using for this profile, so I'm just going to go create a new one real quick. We will call it, well, we can use the same configuration for all of our profiles, so we'll just call it profile deployment. Actually, this would be a good way to do it if we were configuring a lot of users, but in our case, since it's only one user that we're going to be testing with today, there's actually a quicker way to do it, which is just directly through this UI. So this will actually make the query for us instead of us having to manually specify what users we're querying within the collection. policy, as you can see, the user is already added by default by doing it this way. And there you have it. Now we can actually deploy that profile we created earlier. Okay, so that's set up. Another big feature coming with the next update to Windows Phone is the ability to not only create certificate profiles, but manage certificates through renewal and also delete them. I mean, this is something that's really big. It's not easy to manage certificates in regular Windows Phone. It's email only. And of course, that feature is still supported with Windows Phone 8.1, but now this gives an IT admin or an IT pro a little bit more manageability so they can choose exactly who has what certificates, what the renewal period is like, and anything else that they need in terms of their certificate lifecycle management scenario. A thing to note, though, is if you can see here in the UI, see if I can zoom, you are going to need to configure both a trusted CA certificate as well as a simple certificate enrollment protocol deployment for each. So one is, of course, to make sure all your devices trust your root, and one is to actually deploy the certificates by themselves. So we'll call this one the root deployment. We'll start with that. And I actually already have a root certificate ready for this demo. So again, this is the root certificate, which establishes that root of trust all the way up to your CA. And now I'm going to create another certificate profile to show you the SCEP settings. So again, SCEP is just a protocol. The Microsoft implementation of this is NDES, so you are going to need an NDES infrastructure configured. This is something we're not going to cover today because it is very extensive and we're not going to have time, but we will be coming out with content that will be publicly available to help everyone configure not only NDES in their environment, but also how to fit NDES in with Config Manager, Intune, and create this comprehensive certificate management scenario. So if you'll follow me through the UI again, we have a few options here. So these settings are for renewal, so you can determine how often it wants to retry, at what threshold through the expiration the certificate will attempt to renew, and also what the delay is between retries. So we'll leave that default for now. Something else important to point out here is we have a couple choices of where to install the certificate. We can attempt to install it to the TPM, and as Mike said it in an earlier module, all Windows Phone 8 devices have TPM chips. So if you're a Windows Phone 8 house only, then feel free to use this option for maximum security. However, if you're deploying this to devices where you're not sure, or you just want to make sure everyone is supported, then you can use just the software key storage provider. And again, we can allow the certificate to be installed on any of the user's devices or just on their primary device. So we'll do any device for this demo. So in this certificate template, it's going to sync to our CA, which you'll see the address here. We're going to pick a template, in this case, user template, just to keep things simple. We will pick the SAN or subject alternative name as the UPN. Pick a few hashing algorithms that we would like to support. And then, this is important, we need to pick which other certificate profile is containing the root certificate. Again, it's not going to work unless you have that root certificate trust. So make sure that you deploy this and get this working first so that any SCEP deployments can then use this profile. So we specified that. We'll specify where we are deploying SCEP profile. There you have it. So now we're going to go ahead and deploy the profile that we just created. Make sure they're both deployed. Okay, so both our certificate root and our SCEP deployment are all going towards the same user collection. Next on the list is VPN. So again, another huge feature that people have been waiting for is the ability to not only use VPN as the primary connection on a device, which can be manually turned on, but also a cool feature that is included with Windows 8.1 is app-aware VPN. So when an application opens, it can be built in such a way where it can determine that it needs VPN access and fire up that connection for the instance of the application and only for that application. So you can still use public internet for just regular functions, but say you have a specific application on your phone that needs internet access, VPN will fire up and initiate a connection as soon as you open that app.
So you might want to do that to, I don't know, maybe connect back to your corporate finance system or your HR system if you've got some kind of mobile HR app, and then you just want secure connection back to that. You don't want to publish that service out onto the public internet. You just want it to be totally private still.
Exactly. A lot of functionality there. So a quick note is that we unfortunately do not have VPN architecture in place in our current environment. It's basically where our servers are housed doesn't support VPN. So we're going to show you what it looks like to deploy a profile, and then we have a different environment set up where we can actually demo you what VPN looks like on a device. So if you follow me through the UI, it's not going to be any different, but just note that it's not, this profile is not the one we're going to be showing you later.
Yeah, so those pesky guys in MSIT, they apparently don't like us just opening up random VPNs into the Microsoft network. Apparently that's a security risk.
That is correct. That is correct.
But kind of interesting that you can go with any of the supported VPN connections there. So you might be using a Cisco device. You might also be using a Microsoft.
Exactly. A lot of third parties supported here.
Yeah.
But in our case, we'll be using this one. And again, you would specify your RAS or VPN server in this case, but we'll just be using what we have available just for the purpose of guiding you through the UI. And then again, there are a lot of supported authentication methods, but in our case, we'll keep it credential-based. So there are also proxy settings available, but again, do not have them currently. And then this is how you configure the automatic VPN connection. I'll show you both methods once we're on the device. So again, this is just how it looks like to create the profile. I'll show you what it looks like working, but it's not going to be the same profile, just as a disclaimer.
And one of the things I noticed you did there, you actually ticked a box to enable all traffic to go through the VPN connection. The thing that you did there is actually you disabled split tunneling. So quite often people will want to, on a mobile device, actually enable split tunneling so that only the data that needs to go back to the corporate network has to go through your proxy servers. Sometimes folks actually want to disable split tunneling and make sure that everything goes through that environment. Probably more common in a company-owned device scenario to use one single tunnel as opposed to in a BYOD device environment, you might go down the split tunneling route.
Definitely. Very good point. Finally, the last profile we're going to be creating today, before you guys are very tired of profiles, is the Wi-Fi profile. Again, it's just one thing that it can be configured on the device, but it can be a lot easier for it to be configured by the admin. It's just one more thing that a user has to configure when they get their device. And a lot of times it's better not only for the help desk and for the support personnel, but also for the end users, because it's already configured. They don't have to get support in the first place. So not only can it cut down help desk tickets, but it's a better end user experience as well if it's just already there and working. So we are going to give it a name and an SSID. And then you can set some settings, but these can also be configured on the device. We can select various authentication types, but in our case, we'll keep it open. There are also proxy settings available, but we don't have a proxy in ours, so we'll leave that blank. So again, there you have it.
Now that can become quite a lot more complicated and again, add way more value if you've got an enterprise wireless access point where you're hiding the SSID. Therefore, it's a little bit hard for the user to go and find the actual access point. And maybe you're also using certificates for authentication to the access point. That kind of gets a little bit painful for people to actually go and configure that individually themselves. So being able to assign the access, being able to set this up as a policy and profile, really, really useful for them.
Absolutely. So now that we've configured all these great settings, we are going to force a sync on the device. And while we're waiting for that to go through, I have a device with some of these profiles already enabled. So if you take a look, here is our email profile. And my colleague Mike Donosky has actually sent me an email. Something to note, though. Oh, and there's this out of office for presenting the webcasts earlier. So, you know, this is all live. Let's see. It's actually this one. Here we go. And this is a protected message that cannot be opened on the phone. So this is rights management in effect. Mike sent a rights management email to our friend Theo, in case any of you are football fans or soccer fans. And we cannot open it on the device. So that's something else that has come with the Enterprise Feature Pack. Something else I'll show you. Here is the Wi-Fi profile that has been added by company policy. So again, this is just an easy way to configure not only email but also Wi-Fi on your corporately managed devices. Another demo that we're going to show is VPN. And I have a physical device here in my hand, actually. And so what we're going to be doing is using a really cool app called the Nokia Beamer app. So as you can see, I have my device here. And what Nokia Beamer allows you to do is share your screen from the device to a nearby machine. So I'm going to scan this QR code if you look at the browser. Let's move the cursor out of the way. Okay, and if we'll give this a second.
Just a couple. There we go. That is your device.
There's our device. So it actually has two settings: shake to update manually, which actually forces me to physically shake the device, and we can also do auto update. So now that we're on auto update, hopefully you can follow along with me while I show you what VPN looks like. So here we have our VPN connection. And you can see it was added by company policy. And it's currently not connected. So we'll go ahead and attempt a manual connection. And it's connected. There are some details that you can add. These are all, again, from company policy. And that's stuff that you would configure from the server side. And something we're going to go ahead and show you guys is an internal Microsoft site, because again, this is
Let's hope there's nothing totally secret and secure on top of the internal website there. Hopefully. Yeah, hopefully everything's okay.
And there you have it. This is an internal site that you cannot just access over the internet. So on the device, there you have it. That's VPN. So we'll go ahead and close out of our Beamer app and see if...
And obviously one of the things that's kind of clever with that is you've provisioned the VPN settings using SCC, using ConfigMan and using Windows Intune. Now, should that be, somebody loses that device, we can do the remote wipe so we don't lose the VPN connection that person's already got. We keep it all nicely contained. We can set really strong authentication details against the VPN connection just to make sure, hey, you know what, somebody loses this, we're not going to allow just anybody access to the information inside of our organization.
Exactly. So if you look at my screen, you can see that our MVA test has come down from Config Manager, from Intune. And if we can get to settings, I can show you that. Hopefully, Wi-Fi has come down as well. There you have it.
Awesome.
Added by company policy. So that's what Wi-Fi looks like. It looks like we're actually, this is an Exchange issue. If you see this screen and it's not letting you log in, oh, well, looks like Exchange kicked in just at the right time. So here's my mailbox. This is fully configured, fully authenticated, ready to go. I'm ready to send emails and receive them. And one final note, we are unable to kind of show you the result of all of our hard work on the certificate profile demo because there just isn't a good way to see what certificates are on the device. It kind of takes a lot of unlocking and other software and stuff that we don't really have available to us right now. But we assure you it's there. And that just about wraps it up for today.
It does. You would be able to see those the results of that if we had kind of created an internal website that was secured with a signing cert that had been issued by our enterprise CA. That'd be the kind of obvious way that you'd actually come across that inside of your organization. So there are some possibilities, and I'm sure you'll come across them very quickly. That does wrap us up. That's the end of the course. This is the final module. We've gone through quite a lot during this course. We've done mobile application management, mobile device management. We've done mobile content management. We've done, well, a whole load of separate things inside of all those modules. There's going to be some questions that you'll be able to answer at the end of this in order to be able to get your MVA course credit. Go ahead and do that. Thank you very much for watching.
Thanks, guys.
Welcome to the overview module for the course on Windows Phone 8.1 Enterprise Mobility Management. Later on in this course, you're going to have a look at mobile device management. We're going to have a look at mobile application management, and we're also going to take a look at mobile content and information management. We've got two great guys coming in to do that from our customer services and support team. They are on the tools all the time, helping customers with any issues that they might find as they're starting to roll out Windows Phone 8.1 into their enterprises using ConfigMan and also using Windows Intune. However, before we get into the meat of this course, we're going to go and have a look at an overview module first with Alan, who's going to take me through kind of the key new features inside of Windows Phone 8.1. Alan, welcome to the MVA.
Hi.
Give these guys a bit of an introduction as to who you are, what it is that you do.
Right, sure. So my name is Alan Mios. I've been working for about 5 years on Windows Phone specifically, and I'm very proud that at this point in time we are really taking off with Windows Phone 8.1. I'm going to talk a little bit about the enterprise capabilities of Windows Phone, and I'm a senior product marketing manager in the Unified Windows team, as we call it these days. So I'm very happy to be here and to be able to introduce this course.
So, Alan, the first thing I guess is that we've all seen it. Mobility has changed the way that we all work over the course of the past few years recently. And Windows Phone 8.1 allows us to get a little bit more mobile from an enterprise point of view as well.
Yeah, right. So when we look at IT organizations today, a lot of the IT organizations are really looking at mobility as a really big point of investments. right? IT organizations have traditionally been investing in operational things, right? Getting all this stuff working and keep it up and all those kind of things. And now all these consumers are getting into the enterprise and the business organizations with all these mobile devices, mobile phones, tablets, what have you. And IT needs to take care of that. It changes the life of the consumer because the consumer is now consuming a digital lifestyle, if you want, right, across the board. And it changes the life of IT in terms of how they manage and how they take care of security and all those kind of things that are really critical for a business organization. So this duality really brings a lot of change within IT organizations.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. When I first started doing any mobile device management inside of an organization, the device that I was managing would be one that was issued by the company. It'd be just given to somebody. There'd be no ability to kind of change anything on there. You'd maybe just about have an app store because app stores were just about coming in at that point. You might be able to get to a couple of websites. You might be able to maybe find a chat application. That's changed completely now. And obviously we all have devices in our pocket which we expect to be able to personally customize those devices.
Yeah, right. And Microsoft obviously has been working on mobility in the past in general, but today we are certainly not seen as a market leader in this space, right? We are not the share leader when it comes to tablets and phones in the marketplace. Some of our competitors are more present in markets and with users and the consumers most certainly as such. However, we are making a lot of progress today with Windows Phone and with Windows 8. Windows Phone is kind of our first entry into modern mobility, if you want. And with Windows 8, we brought the same type of user experience to tablets and PCs, and we're working hard on that, selling a lot of Windows 8 licenses in the market. So a lot of them are also being deployed by our enterprise customers. But also Windows Phone, we're making a lot of progress, being above 10% in more than 10 markets and selling more iPhones in markets such as some of the European markets, Latin America, India, etc. We are a really strong offering in these markets. And if we look at how our CIOs are looking at Microsoft, a lot of them are looking at deploying Windows 8 and developing Windows 8 applications, and at the same time looking at how they can replace the BlackBerries with Windows Phone 8.1. And that is kind of a key offering that we just announced, right? Windows Phone 8.1 with lots of enterprise capabilities.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the most exciting things about Windows Phone 8.1 is the fact that if you look at a Windows Phone device, you don't necessarily always look at the same device. Mm-hmm. We've got such a breadth of different devices out there from all the different OEMs. You can get a small form factor device, you can get a really large one, you could pick a relatively low cost device, a really high end device. We just have a really nice proposition there from left to right.
Yeah, correct, right? So with the acquisition of Nokia, we now own the Lumia phone range for that all runs Windows Phone. And you can actually buy a pretty inexpensive phone with the Lumia 520, for example, here in the US for about $60 to $75 without a phone plan. So it's a really inexpensive device, up to the much more expensive devices such as the 1520, etc., which are great devices, high resolution, great cameras, etc., a phablet type of approach. The really important point here, though, is that all these devices are running the same OS, are having the same applications built in, so that our enterprise customer, our business customers know exactly what they get when they buy a Windows Phone or need to support a Windows Phone that a consumer brings in, right?
Yeah,
same security architecture, same manageability, all that kind of stuff is just so predictable for
you. It's that predictability that makes for a really good enterprise operating system. You want to know that every time you deploy something, it's going to work. You want to know that you can then go and check that it did actually work, that we can get some information back from the device. We also want to make sure that it doesn't matter what the size of the screen is, because we have all these different screen sizes, that the application, when you've deployed it, actually works on the device. That's a kind of key and important feature. And we've recently announced new devices as well.
Yeah. And indeed, we did. One thing I would like to say when we compare these devices to the competition is that when you look at an iOS device, an iPhone, you have one device, you have predictability, but it's just one device and it's expensive, right? And if you look at Android, you have all these types of devices, but you never know what you're going to get when you get an Android. Even with Samsung, if you have an S3 or an S4 or an S5, they're all three different, and these are kind of the classy enterprise type of devices they have. Obviously, we are building our portfolio with Nokia. We just introduced at the Build conference in San Francisco. We brought two new phones to market together with Nokia. And first of all, we brought the 930, which is kind of a higher-end device, if you want, a high-resolution camera, a 1080p screen, 4-core processor. So it's a really great performant device. It's going to be pleasing to a lot of users out there that want a little smaller than a phablet device. And then we also are bringing a series of the 6 devices, right? The 630 and the 635. What is important here also, these are lower priced devices. What is important also with the 630 is that it will support dual SIM. So you can have actually 2 SIMs that are active at the same time. You can receive calls on both SIMs. Not at the same time exactly, of course, but you don't have to switch on and switch on one of the SIMs. And for a lot of business users, this is going to be great. You kind of have the private line and the business line and distinct them really easily on the phone.
And it's
show.
great in those emerging markets as well, where you seamlessly need to be able to switch between different cell providers every so often. It kind of becomes a really key thing to be able to do.
Yeah, that's a great point. Emerging markets are still the growing markets. And at Mobile World Congress as well as Build, we announced partnership with 15 different OEMs to build devices specifically for these emerging markets. We have now a Windows Phone or a Windows reference design that we do together with Qualcomm, so that we built together with Qualcomm the hardware, the motherboard, if you want, right? The Windows Phone license or any Windows license for devices less than 9-inch is now $0, so it's no cost for the license. They can build really inexpensive phones with these kits, if you want, to go to market very quickly without having to do all the integration engineering that is really costly to them. So also there, we're going to be able to penetrate the market with really low-cost phones, but high quality, right?
Yeah.
Predictability.
Yep, high quality, predictability. And also, Windows Phone 8.1 gives us loads of cool enterprise features. Things like VPN, like the ability to do assigned access. I love the image on this particular slide. We've got somebody using a card reader on a Windows Phone device. What a great way of being able to do assigned access. You can imagine that being replacing somebody's point of sale. Literally assign just that application. That application can just be the application which launches at startup of the phone. And there's very little else that somebody can do there. They literally have a point of sale device in their hand.
Yeah. Right, and it's for point of sale, for all kinds of scenarios that are more task-oriented. Again, here you see conversions, right? Where we are working very strongly at converging, and with Windows Phone 8.1, we are making big steps in this area. Obviously, we have all the great experiences that the users need in terms of the Office applications and Outlook built-in and those kind of things to get people going very quickly. But as you said, we're adding enterprise VPN with EPTLS and EPTTLS. We're adding VPN for people to get access to SharePoint servers, for example, behind firewalls with IPsec and SSL VPN support, right? We're adding SMIME for those customers who want to protect their email better by signing and encrypting the email. It's going to be part of the operating system, part of the native Outlook experience. No additional tools to be installed on the device to be able to do that. And last but not least, for end users, why not talk about Cortana really in a business environment too, right?
Yeah.
I can ask my phone to schedule a meeting. I can reply to email and text using Cortana. I can ask her to find the studio I needed to be in this afternoon. She helps me do all kinds of things in my business life as well as my personal life. And I don't know if we're going to cover it in a session later, but if you really don't like her, MDM can turn it off.
Yeah, actually, that's one of the things we do.
Well, I wouldn't like that to happen, but you can do it if you want to. So IT is really in control with Windows Phone 8.1. Right?
Yeah, there's a whole laundry list of features that we've added in there, which actually should make most folks in enterprise really, really excited.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we don't often cover when we talk about enterprise, though, is universal apps. And that's actually kind of an important thing. We can start now getting your line of business application developers inside of an organization to develop once, running on phone, running on Windows. It becomes much more easy to create a compelling line of business application that just works everywhere.
Yeah, true. And even from a business perspective, why not develop a phone for Xbox? I mean, you have all this audience out there. If you want to promote your company, you can develop apps for Xbox. You can use them in your own showroom environments. You can use them in your training environments, right? It's all the same app that works across phones and PCs and laptops and tablets and even the Xbox, which is a really big step forward.
And I guess one of the things that people often say as well is the ecosystem around Windows Phone. It is growing. We're getting more application developers, more ISVs creating applications that are focused at line of business.
Yeah, correct. So we'll see. We already have a number of these applications available in the store. We see a number of the VPN vendors coming on board with applications. We're seeing MDM vendors coming on board with support for it. We see people like Xamarin with cross-platform development tools that tie into our Converge platform to develop also for iOS and Android devices. We see a lot of things coming together in this ecosystem with more than 300,000 apps today and more coming, right, through the Converged app platform as such. Yeah,
it's a fantastic position to be in, to have a platform where it really is growing like this and so many folks coming on board. Throughout the course of the rest of this MVA course, we're going to have a look at MDM and, in fact, Enterprise Mobility Management, the whole suite. We're going to be doing all of that with ConfigMan and Windows Intune, which are the Microsoft products for doing all of that management work. But it is quite possible to go out there and use somebody else's products in order to be able to do your EMM. Windows Phone is built with that in mind. So without further ado, we're going to wrap this up. Alan, thanks very much for joining me on the overview session here. Yeah. And we're going to then move into Module 1, which is looking at mobile device management. That's right, MDM with Windows Phone 8.1 and our enterprise management solutions.